We are here at Tranquility Fine Arts Gallery. We have the privilege of talking with Stephen Lester today. He is one of our artists that we are very proud of here in the gallery. He's local to the Woodstock, Georgia area, but he's done a lot of work all over, not just around here. And we wanted to take a moment to honor him and speak with him about his passion and his vision and his professional skill set. So welcome.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I have an interesting background. I had spent 4 decades working in the commercial sector as an art director and creative director, advertising, corporate world. And really, it wasn't until I retired from that I got serious about being a fine artist. I have a degree in illustration, commercial illustration. So I graduated in the 70s. I'm an old geezer. So when I graduated, I started as an illustrator, commercial illustrator, but I eventually morphed within the first decade into doing art direction and creative direction, and I got away from doing painting. And I have a regret of that. I was very successful in what I did, and I enjoyed what I did, but I wish I had never put down my paintbrushes because I really didn't pick them up again until I was, 5-6 years ago, and started doing it myself, and really was doing it for myself. I didn't know if anybody else would like or appreciate what I've done. That's why many people know me as a sports artist, because I was doing sports because I liked sports. I was a Braves fan. I grew up in Atlanta. I worked for Ted Turner back when he owned the Atlanta Braves. I knew a lot of those guys in the 80s and the 90s. And he owned the Hawks as well. So I kind of grew up on that. Sports was a fan. I played ball in school. And so I did it for myself. And I guess because of the emergence of social media, I could post things, get instant feedback from people who liked my work and said they wanted it or wanted a print or something like that. And it was an encouragement to me. So I continued on in that way until I just eventually found a niche and found some people that really liked my work, and it encouraged me to continue as a fine art painter. At that point, I still didn't know where I was going, but I was, refreshing my skill set, bringing it back forward, studio skills as well as the painting and the hand skills, the ability to see, the ability to put it down on canvas. And, if you look at my work from just a few years ago and right now, it's much more diverse and much more, not diverse in terms of its subject matter, but in terms of its brushwork and that kind of thing. As an illustrator, you're oftentimes a narrative artist trying to capture the event or a slice or a moment in time. And by virtue of that, it's more often than not very realistic. So I'm constantly trying to work against that realism. People often say, well, it looks just like a photo. That's not a real compliment to me, because I can capture that. But I really, and I say that with tongue in cheek, but it really is my desire to have more of my own personal passion about it, interpret that moment in such a way that it's not just like a photograph, that it brings out some emotion. And so that's why, hence, the sports have a lot of movement in there. They have a lot of action and a lot of excitement for me. But now I'm beginning to find I can move that into other subject areas and bring that same emotion into that as well. So it's been an interesting journey, because even though I've only started it, people say, well, how long did it take you to do that? And I'll say about 70 years, because I have now these decades of experience, because you bring in not just the craft, you bring all of this creativity from decades of working in the creative field. And then you bring the craft, and you also bring the wisdom of experience that comes along with that. And those three overlap.
Yeah.
And that brings a whole plethora of components into what makes a painting. So does that answer your question?
That absolutely answers my question. And you mentioned the invent of social media, and that's actually how we found you. Okay. We saw you on social media. We had a lot of mutual friends.
Yes.
And then Mike, my husband, reached out and said, hey, we want to open a car gallery.
Fortunate for me, Mike likes sports.
Yes, yes. That was huge too.
And the funny thing was, if I remember, when you first came over and said, we're thinking about starting a gallery, and we'd like to ask you if you'd want to be a part of that, I'm going, I don't know if my work's going to sell in a gallery. Remember that?
Yes,
and,
yes.
So it wasn't that I was had such low sense of self-value. It's just that, I wasn't sure. I hadn't been in and around the gallery scene and just didn't know what would sell or what would go. And so I appreciate the opportunities. You guys believed in me early on and said, let's give it a shot.
Well, I appreciate you trusting us to kind of take that opportunity and see what happens. And if I remember when we first met, your wife, Rosemary, who was an absolutely beautiful person, spoke that encouragement into you.
Yes, she did.
She planted a lot of seeds of encouragement.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Rosemary believed in me years ago. We've been married 43 years, but she couldn't wait. She continued to, like for Christmas, she would buy me an oil paint set and say, get to work. I'd do one or two and I'd give them away and through the years, but I never really got into it. And so finally, about the same time that I was retiring from my professional field, Rosemary said, we're going to get a house that has a studio, a dedicated studio. And she really was the one that encouraged me. I want to see paint everywhere. She believed in me. It's that old song that, she believed in me. I'll never know what she sees in me. But yeah, that's been a great encouragement for sure.
And your studio is, it's perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect. Things happen for a reason. I truly believe that. Things will line up and happen for a reason. So, and we've learned a lot from you. I know you recently gave me a book, and that just was very eye-opening to a lot of different concepts, and it's very inspiring too. So Stephen is actually one of our top artists. It's funny that he actually said to us, I don't know if my work would fit in a gallery. I don't know. And we said, let's just do it and see what happens. And he is actually our top seller and has been now for a very long time. This is one of his pieces here. This is actually my favorite piece. This piece here just brings so much peace and comfort to a person's soul. And then behind this here is also one of his newer works. So you can see that, as he mentioned, he does a lot of different work. So kind of the landscape and seascape, but also the sports art. And you were also awarded the privilege, you were supposed to go to Tokyo for the Olympics.
Yeah. I had done a series of Olympians. As I mentioned, that I was a narrative artist. So I like the stories. To me, these pieces tell stories. That's what evokes something out of you about that particular painting right there. But I like backstories of athletes. I'm not just interested in the stardom of it. In fact, sometimes I actually resent the fact that they make so much money and they have, there's all kinds of scandals that go on and that sort of thing. That's not what I'm interested in. What I'm interested in is those people that overcame great odds to get to where they were. And so I had done a series of paintings for myself that were of untold stories of Olympians, whether it be Jesse Owens or, someone like that had to overcome great odds to achieve great things. And I feel like those stories are undertold, particularly in the visual art scene. So I did them and wound up having a portfolio of, 13 or 16 different paintings of Olympians and Paralympians. And because in 2019, the United States Sports Academy awarded me the International Sports Artist of the Year, I made contact with the Tokyo Olympics, and in 2020 was invited to have a solo exhibition of my Olympic-themed work there at the Olympics. Of course, we know what happened with COVID in 2020, and that was canceled, put off until another year. And even then, I was supposed to reschedule, but there was nobody there other than the athletes. There were no spectators to see my work. So it didn't work out. But, there's 2026 in Paris, and 24, and then in 28, there's Los Angeles Olympics. So those come around every few years. So I'm still hopeful that, those will be seen and appreciated. Even if it's not something that I sell. I mean, I'd love to sell the work, but I'm more interested in people seeing it and hearing these stories and telling those backstories. That's, I think, really inherent in all of my work is a backstory. It may not be obvious, but something that it means to me in this particular